Back when I was a kid, I had this PS1 demo disc that had some demos like Tomb Raider 2, Tomba, Jersey Devil, Blasto, Gex. I spent countless hours in those demos with my friends. One of the demos was Tekken 3, where you could only play as either Xiao Yu or Eddie, and only one fight against Paul also. I remember my friends and I were sure that if we beat the demo in under a certain amount of time or something, we could unlock the other characters. Of course that didn't happen. Eventually I got the full version of Tekken 3 and I was surprised to see that the game had a whole other game mode, like a 2.5 beat 'em up. I remember my jaw dropped as if I was playing a whole different video game. It was incredible. I couldn't find anything on YouTube talking about this type of additional content in fighting games, specifically, so I decided to make this video talking briefly, or at least trying to be brief, about these alternative game modes inside of fighting games. And I'm not talking about spin-offs of fighting games like Shaolin Monks or Mythology Sub-Zero. No, I'm talking about fully fledged games, or almost fully fledged games inside of conventional fighting games. Now, some fighting games in the past have implemented some sort of minigames, but like the word says, they were usually very basic and short screens in between the fights, like the iconic car destruction level from Street Fighter 2 back in 1991. We can even go back further to 1984 to a game called Karate Champ, which is actually considered to be the first modern fighting game in the sense that it had 3-round fights, combos, a timer and all that. This game had the player doing some random activities in between the fights. I tried capturing footage for it, but I kept getting my face kicked in the first level. But the first game I could find that had a fully fledged alternative game mode was Tekken 3. It's called Tekken Force, and like I mentioned previously, it's a 2.5 beat 'em up. It has 4 levels and you can play as any of the characters from the game. As you can see here, there's not much to it, you simply move right, beating a bunch of random goons, and in the end there's a character from the roster you have to fight against. I got beaten up pretty bad by Gunjack in the second level, and there are no lives, so if you lose it's back to the main screen. Relentless. Tekken 4 also had this mode and was slightly improved, being in the next generation and all. The levels are much bigger and there are so many more enemies at once on the screen, which makes it a lot more fun than the previous Tekken Force. And this is what I'm talking about. If this was longer with a story and maybe some character progression, it could be a whole separate game and it's just there as an extra for the players. You can beat it in under 25 minutes, it's very challenging but not as much as Tekken 3. It's my favorite Tekken side mode, at least out of the Tekken games we're talking about in this video, since I haven't played the 360 Tekken games onwards, so I'm not talking about these games here today. But when it comes to side content, Tekken 5 is a whole other beast. Being an ankle game, by the way, it starts with an arcade game called Starblade while the game loads. It always infuriates me that Namco copyrighted games inside loading screens, like we see in Dragon Ball Budokai. You could even make a video about this, stupid copyrights in video games. Apparently this patent expired in 2015, but loading screens have become so shortened in the latest years that no game company is wasting their time doing this anymore. At least I haven't seen any recently. Anyway, after you start the actual game, you have access to the full arcade versions of Tekken 1, 2 and 3. It's all there for free, since DLC only started to show up 2 years later. And then there's Devil Within. That's such a bigger departure that it has its own save file. This time we control only Jin during the events of Tekken 5, and I'm not gonna get into the crazy lore of Tekken here in this video. Here there is so much more freedom over the controls and the maps are much larger as well, taking around 20 minutes to finish each of the 5 stages of the game. Can feel quite repetitive since the stages are basically the same thing with only reskin every now and then. For example, the first 2 levels have a lab theme and then it switches to a ruin setting, but it's still the same mechanics. You simply have to get to the end of the level, killing the enemies and destroying some boxes that open the doors to progress forward. And then at the end of each level you have a boss fight against a tougher enemy, but nothing too fancy as well. If they had improved upon this, adding more mechanics and a better replayability, it could absolutely be its own game. Now moving to a different franchise, we have Mortal Kombat Deception and its Conquest mode. This is the second MK game released for the PS2 generation, Deadly Alliance was released 2 years earlier and it also had a conquest mode, but it only had the same mechanics as the main game. Here we control Shujinko during his entire life, starting as a kid and evolving to like an older guy. And they really made a Shenmue clone here. You can walk around in the map talking to NPCs, you can enter random buildings, there's a day and night cycle with changing weather conditions, it's super impressive. It also impresses me that they did the Phantom Pain time skip 11 years earlier.
Kept you waiting, huh?
Around the map there are coins and chests you can find. These chests open new costumes and new things in the main game, and also in the other alternative game mode that this game has. Here when the game switches to a fight, it plays the same as the main game, but the point here is how far they went into making this world into a more immersive and believable one. As the story progresses, you move to different realms and the main character grows older and older, and by the end of the game you are this wise master of martial arts. And the writing, by the way, is peak early 2000s video game. Seriously, this game can sometimes be very hilarious.
Ham! I love ham! Thank you very much! Have you heard of the Red Dragon? They are a mysterious clan of warriors.
Also, I think it's very funny how the character feels like he's sped up when he's walking. And on top of that, you can run with R2, making him go even faster. I like how Boraicho's house has its own plate here, and the village is just called Village. Seriously, this game can be hilarious. I could keep talking about it for a whole separate video if I wanted to, but it's already taking too much time here, so go ahead and play it please. It takes about 7 hours to finish this mode, which is impressive and it's literally the playtime of most games from this generation even. Besides that, like I mentioned earlier, this game also has 2 other modes, Chess Combat and Puzzle Combat. Chess Combat may look like a regular game of chess, but it's actually quite its own thing. You pick the fighters from the roster to build your board, and then you move the pieces to kill the adversary. But the catch here is that, once you reach the square occupied by your opponent, a fight starts between the characters. The winner takes the square. The game ends once you kill the leader, much like killing the king in regular chess. There are also some options you can use your turn in, like sacrificing one of the pieces to heal another one, as they don't start with a full health and that also transfers to the fighting segments of the match. For example, if you win a fight during the game but you took some hits, the health of this piece will not regenerate for the next fight. Once again, it's quite impressive how detailed this is. And then there's Puzzle Combat. This mode is the simplest in the game here. It's just a match colors type puzzle, and the more points you make, the more your character beats the other one, eventually winning the match. But it's nice that they modeled the characters in a chibi style for this mode. They look really cute. It looks like a fun game to play against friends also. Now moving to Mortal Kombat Armageddon. It was the last MK game released for the PS2, and look at this roster, it has so many characters it looks like a Mugen game. The general premise of the Conquest mode here is very similar. You control Taven, the new character, freely in the levels, with regular fights against the main characters of the story. The difference here is that now it plays more like an adventure type of game, set in linear levels instead of walking around in an open world talking to NPCs. I have to say it plays quite well and it's a lot of fun, however, it's easier to see here that it's a secondary mode. Since the levels are so linear and straightforward, you keep finding chests every minute or so, unlocking random things for the rest of the game. It's much shorter than the previous Conquest also, clocking in at around 4 hours, but it's also worth giving a try. The second and last alternative mode in MK Armageddon is Motor Combat, which is basically a Mario Kart clone. This might be one of the worst games shown here in this video. It doesn't play very well, the controls are weird, and it's overall too simple. You simply choose a track and a character, and once the race ends, it sends you back to the track selection screen. Each character has its special moves at least, which is quite cool. That is basically it. I know I missed a few games, but there are just so many that this video will be an hour long if I showed them all. And it already took me an entire month to record footage for this one. So I admit I'm very exhausted, so I'm wrapping things up here. Let me know in the comments what's your favorite of these mini games. This is also my first video, at least talking like this, showing video games and stuff. So feel free to send me any feedback on what could be improved, and also what would you like to see next in this format. See you around.